Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Alpha's Stepmate. Episode 2. Chapter 16. Dimitri's POV. My heart skipped a beat as she laid next to me. All I wanted to do was wrap my arms around her and press her to my chest. I was in heaven. Her scent in the room was so intense that I felt like I was high on it. My whole body was filled with it and it felt amazing. The only thing that was missing was the feeling of her skin on mine. I would have that soon, though. Just 9 months and I would lay in bed with her pressed against me. I know everything about the Great War, Maddie said. My mom told me a lot of stories about it. The war between the 3 Lycan kingdoms was a brutal affair, with the clash of steel and the roar of battle going on for months on end. It was a war of tooth and claw, of strength and sometimes dirty tactics, as each kingdom fought tooth and nail for dominance over the others. The 3 Lycan kingdoms had lived in an uneasy truce for many years, but tensions began to rise when the second kingdom, the Kingdom of Gold Fangs, discovered a rich vein of gold in their territory. The first kingdom, the Kingdom of Blood Moon, eager to get their hands on the precious metal, launched a surprise attack on the second kingdom in an attempt to seize the gold mines. The third kingdom, the Kingdom of Shadow Claws, who had always resented the other 2 kingdoms for their arrogance and aggression, saw this as an opportunity to assert their dominance over the region. They swooped in and attacked both the first and second kingdoms, hoping to weaken them enough to make them vulnerable to a complete takeover. As the war raged on, it became less about the gold mines and more about power and control. The third kingdom, with its superior tactics and secretive nature, began to gain the upper hand, and it seemed that they would win. The first kingdom, known for its quick reflexes and sharp senses, launched a surprise attack on the second kingdom, catching them off guard and driving them back to their borders. However, the second kingdom rallied and shattered the first kingdom's army and left their once great city in ruins. As the war raged on, the third kingdom watched from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. And when that moment came, they emerged from the darkness like a pack of vengeful wolves, unleashing a devastating assault on both the first and second kingdoms, crushing their armies and winning the Great War. However, the surviving Lycans of the first and second kingdoms refused to submit to the third kingdom's rule. The war left the third kingdom in ruins and serious financial issues, leaving their people scattered and broken. The third kingdom won, but the cost of victory was too big. The entrance to the gold mines was lost and their hope of finding it slowly disappeared. No one knew where it was and the existence of the gold mine under the second kingdom's land slowly turned into a legend. The surviving wolves banded together under a new leader who promised to unite the Lycans and bring an end to the senseless bloodshed. And so, the new king rose to power, bringing a new era of peace and prosperity to the United Kingdoms. That new king was my great-great-grandfather. Did you know that the Kingdom of Gold Fangs had a legend about the goddess of gold? I asked as I smiled at her. Her eyes widened a little. I saw a small gold freckle on her iris and I just fell in love with her even harder. I couldn't wait to cup her beautiful face and stare into her eyes until I memorized every shade and every freckle. I didn't know that, she mumbled. What did the legends say? I wasn't surprised. The legend of the goddess of gold was kept a secret. There was only one book that mentioned it. It was the book only kings had access to. The goddess of gold is a mortal deity that takes the form of a wolf. I started my story. According to legend, everything she touches with the claw on her right paw turns into gold. I lifted my hand and caressed Maddie's cheek. I couldn't hold back. I needed to feel her skin under my fingertips. The people of the Kingdom of Gold Fangs believed that she would be the one to unite the kingdoms, I continued, focusing on that beautiful freckle on her iris. They believed that she would be the one to mend the differences that separated the kingdoms for years. My princess's eyebrows furrowed. But your great-great-grandfather did that, she mumbled. He united the kingdoms. I sighed and ran my fingers through her hair absent-mindedly. Not really, I sighed. There are a lot of fractions in the kingdom. There are descendants of the Third Kingdom who still believe that they should be the ones to rule. I sighed and gave her a small smile. The legend said that the goddess of gold would bring peace, I said. We don't have that in our kingdom. I have to deal with attacks on the throne constantly. That was probably the biggest reason I didn't want anyone to know who Maddie was to me. They could use her against me. Someone could take her from me and blackmail me into giving up the throne. My princess didn't have her wolf yet and she would be defenseless. I couldn't let that happen. I am sorry to hear that, she mumbled quietly. I smiled at her. It's okay, Maddie, I said. I learned how to deal with them. I want our people to live in peace and I am trying my hardest to keep it. I want to be a good king. Maddie studied my face for a second. You already are, she said, making my heart skip a beat. I smiled at her. Thank you. She smiled back and my knees buckled. I wanted to kiss her so badly. Do you believe in it? Maddie asked, making me furrow my eyebrows. I was so focused on that beautiful smile on her face that I completely forgot what we were talking about. The legend, she explained after she saw the confusion on my face. Oh, I mumbled, my eyes widening a little. I do. I believe that the goddess is real. Maybe we aren't worthy of her yet. Maybe she is waiting somewhere and she will appear when we least expect it. Maddie nodded and looked at the ceiling. Do you think that she exists? I asked her, resisting the urge to kiss her cheek. Maybe, Maddie mumbled. I smiled and took a deep breath. I didn't need any goddess in my life as long as I had Madeline. She was my goddess. She was my princess. She was my everything. Janet's POV come in, I said quietly. The door opened and Savannah walked inside. We have to do something, Savannah, I told her as soon as she closed the door behind herself. She furrowed her eyebrows and approached me. She sat on the chair next to my bed and crossed her arms over her chest. What are you talking about, Janet? She asked, making me sigh. Dimitri, I explained. You need to make him take you as his mate. Her eyes widened a little. She studied my face with a confused look on her own. I tried, she said. He is stubborn, and he wants to wait for his fated mate. I rolled my eyes and stood up. I started pacing around my room, clenching my fists repeatedly. She will be some spoiled little brat, I am sure of it, I said, gritting my teeth. But that's not an issue right now. I looked at Savannah, who looked even more confused than she was before. Then what is? She asked. I tightened my jaw and tried to control my anger. I hated Madeline. She was a spoiled little brat who looked too much like her dead mother. I hated her attitude and her broken little girl act. I wanted her gone and I couldn't wait until she turned 18. I would kick her out of the pack immediately. But what bugged me the most was the fact that Dimitri liked her. I could tell by the way he was looking at her. Would he fall in love with her? Would he take her as his chosen mate? No. I couldn't let that happen. I had to do something about it and stop it before it could happen. Mike's daughter, I mumbled, making Savannah's eyes widen. Why? She asked with a hint of jealousy in her voice. Great. That was all I wanted. I knew how much Savannah wanted my son. I knew that she wanted to become Luna. She wanted the money and power that came with being married to the king. I was okay with that. It would make my plan go smoothly, and I knew that I would get along with Savannah much better than with Madeline or any other pathetic girl like her. Dimitri is too affectionate toward her, I said, making Savannah's eyes narrow. I am afraid that he could ask her to be his chosen mate once she turns 18. Savannah clenched her fists and a growl escaped her. Over my dead body, she said quietly. Can't we get rid of her? I sighed and ran my fingers through my hair. No, I said as I stopped pacing around my room. If it gets out that we did something to that girl, Mike would freak out. I don't want to deal with that. Savannah furrowed her eyebrows and bit her lower lip. It looked like she was thinking about something. A few moments later she looked up at me worriedly. What if she is his fated mate, she mumbled, making me gasp. Goddess forbid! I exclaimed. That's not even possible. She is a regular werewolf, not a Lycan. Savannah breathed out in relief. Oh, thank goddess! That would be my worst nightmare. I was so happy that Madeline wasn't a Lycan and it wasn't possible for her to be my son's fated mate. He could take her as his chosen one, though, just like I took Mike. I couldn't let that happen. You need to make him take you as his mate, Savannah, I told her. We have to stop that little brat from even thinking that she has a chance with my son. I saw the fury in Savannah's eyes. That will never get him. I smirked and nodded. I knew that Savannah was the right choice for this plan. How old is she? Savannah asked. 17, I answered. She will be 18 in 9 months. That's perfect, Savannah said as a huge smile spread across her face. Dimitri can't do anything until she is of age. I nodded and continued pacing around my room. That's why we need to work fast, I said. I want you to be marked by the time that little brat turns 18. Do you have a plan? Savannah asked. Dimitri has been kind of cold with me lately. I looked at her and smirked. You could fake a pregnancy, I said, making Savannah raise her eyebrows at me. Are you serious? She sighed. Lycan wolves notice a change in the female's scent when she is pregnant. He would see through my lie immediately. I sighed and rolled my eyes. She was wrong. No, I said, trying not to sound annoyed. Lycan males immediately notice the change in the scent of their mate. They notice the change in other females' scent only after about 2 to 3 weeks. How long has it been since the two of you had sex? About 3 weeks, Savannah said, making me furrow my eyebrows. That could work. We only needed him to believe her for a second. I knew my son. He would take responsibility and he would take Savannah as his chosen mate. That could work, I said, smirking. You need to tell him that you are pregnant. He will take you as his mate immediately. Savannah furrowed her eyebrows. He will know that I am not, she said. There won't be any change in my scent. I sighed and tried to contain my anger. She would need so much guidance. He only needs to believe it for a second, Savannah, I said. He will mark you and you two will have sex again. Females get pregnant more easily when they are marked. You will get pregnant after he marks you and he won't know anything. And if I don't? She asked. It won't matter, I said, gritting my teeth. You will be marked and that little brat will definitely be out of the picture. Savannah nodded and smirked. I will do it. Dimitri is mine. I smiled back at her and gave her a small nod. You need to do it fast, I said. I know that we have 9 months, but I want her as far away from my son as possible. I would be happiest if she left even before she turned 18. I would be happiest if she ran away and we never saw her again. She looked too much like her mother. I will talk to him today, Savannah said. That will never have him. Good, I said and smirked. We need to save my son. Madeline wouldn't have him. She would never be able to come close to him. I would make sure that she knew her place in this world. I would make sure that she knew she wasn't wanted or needed in our pack. Madeline's POV. I snuggled closer to something warm in my bed. What was that? Was I hugging a pillow? I sometimes did that. It smelled really nice. Like cocoa with cinnamon. It was my favorite drink. A small smile spread across my face and I took a deep breath of the wonderful scent. I was still half asleep and nothing made sense, but I didn't care. I was warm. I was comfortable. I was enjoying the scent of my favorite drink surrounding me. I didn't want to wake up. But then I felt someone's arms tighten around me. I was awake in a second. I opened my eyes and gasped. Oh, no. No, 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 no. I wasn't snuggling a pillow. I was snuggling. Oh, goddess. I tried to move away from him, but he only tightened his hold on me. SHH, Maddie, he mumbled quietly as he lifted his hand and patted my head gently. Sleep. My eyes widened. You need to wake up, Alpha, I said quietly, afraid that Mike or Janet might hear me. Me. 5 more minutes, Maddie, he mumbled as he snuggled closer to. My heart skipped a beat. What was going on? This was way out of line. I couldn't believe that I fell asleep with him. In my bed. I couldn't believe that I had woken up next to him. What would happen when he woke up and realized that he was sleeping next to me? Would he punish me? Would he exile me? Oh, goddess! I caught myself staring at his face. He had high cheekbones and a jaw that could cut through steel. Well, at least it looked like it. His beard made him seem a bit older and more serious, but the relaxed look on his face as he was snuggling closer to me, made him seem carefree. When a small smile spread across his face, my heart felt like it skipped a million beats. Suddenly, I was feeling very hot. I needed to get out of his arms and out of this bed. Alpha, I called him again, my voice trembling. You need to wake up. I was a bit louder this time. I even shook his shoulder a little. My hands were shaking and my palms were sweaty and I hoped that he didn't notice it. He grunted a little and opened his eyes. He looked at me, making the nervousness inside me grow. What do you have against sleep, Maddie? He asked as a small smirk spread across his face. His deep, raspy, morning voice sent shivers down my spine. He wasn't angry? Why wasn't he angry? Why wasn't he upset? We fell asleep in the same bed. We were hugging. It was inappropriate. He studied my face for a few moments before he chuckled. What's wrong? He asked me softly. I gulped. My throat was completely dry. We fell asleep together, I mumbled quietly, keeping my eyes on his dark ones. He chuckled and nodded. We did. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? I furrowed my eyebrows. I still couldn't understand why he wasn't upset. It's inappropriate, Alpha, I forced myself to mumble. His eyes widened and he let me go. I immediately felt cold. Oh, goddess, Maddie, he mumbled worriedly. Did I make you uncomfortable? I am so sorry. I didn't mean to. I fell asleep by accident. He sat up, making sure that he wasn't touching me anymore. Was he really apologizing? I should be the one to apologize, not him. I wasn't uncomfortable, Alpha, I said as I felt blood rush to my cheeks. I was just worried because you are the Alpha and I am just a wolf. He studied my face for a few moments. He looked like he was in deep thought. I am sorry for falling asleep next to you, I continued. I shouldn't have done that. I was just... Goddess, Maddie, don't apologize, he interrupted me as a small smile spread across his face. There is nothing to apologize for. We are friends, right? This stuff happens sometimes. I furrowed my eyebrows. He really didn't look angry. I was just afraid that I made you uncomfortable, he sighed as he ran his fingers through my hair. I never want to do that, Maddie. I want you to be comfortable around me. Well, looking back at the moment I woke up, I was more than comfortable. I was peaceful and I never wanted to leave the warmth that surrounded me. It's okay, Alpha, I mumbled as I felt blood rush to my cheeks once again. I wasn't uncomfortable. He smiled brightly and my heart skipped a beat. He was beautiful when he smiled like that. I forced myself to take a deep breath and I looked away. If I continued to look at him, my cheeks would explode. I was sure that I was already as red as a tomato. I am glad to hear that, Maddie, he said, making me look back at him. But please stop calling me Alpha. I am Dimitri to you. I looked away again because I felt blood rush to my cheeks again. I could swear that the temperature in the room was rising by the second. Why was it so hot in here? My eyes fell on the clock and I gasped. Maddie. Alpha Dimitri called me worriedly as I jumped out of bed. I will be late for work, I exclaimed as I rushed to my bathroom. It was only my second day. What would Seth and his parents think of me? You don't have to work, Maddie, Alpha Dimitri sighed. I heard him stand up and walk toward me. He leaned on the door frame and watched as I brushed my teeth. I couldn't respond and tell him that I wanted to work. Your dad can take care of you, he continued, making me frown. I spit out the toothpaste and looked up at him. I want to work, I said. I will need the money to move away once I turn 18. Something unfamiliar flashed in his eyes. Was it anger? Was it pain? You don't have to move, Maddie, he said quietly. This is your home. This is your pack. He was wrong. This wasn't my home. This wasn't my pack. I still needed to find that. My home and my pack would feel like waking up in his arms did. My home would be warm and safe. It would smell like cocoa with cinnamon and I would feel loved and accepted. I wasn't loved here. Alpha Dimitri's mother wanted me gone and I would make her wish come true. Dimitri's POV. I was smiling ever since I woke up next to my mate. I had this grin on my face and nothing could wipe it away. I was overing moon happy. I fell asleep in her room by accident. We were talking about the legend and she fell asleep while I was talking about the details of the war. Her head fell on my shoulder and I almost melted into a useless puddle. I promised myself that I would stay only a few minutes. I ran my fingers through her silky hair and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. The taste of her skin had me seeing stars. I took a deep breath of her wonderful scent and before I knew it I fell asleep next to her. At one point during the night, I wrapped her up in my arms. It was an accident, but I was so glad it happened. It calmed my soul down and I knew it would help me deal with the fact that I would have to wait for her for 9 months. Maybe there would be more happy accidents like that. I had so many stories to tell her. Maybe she would fall asleep in my arms again and I could calm the raging storm in my soul. Skol was never happier and calmer. It kind of felt like he was on drugs. He kept mumbling about her scent and the feeling of her skin against us. I wondered how he would act once we marked and mated her. I will explode with happiness, he mumbled, and I had to hold back a giggle. It was hard for me to imagine a huge Lycan wolf who everyone feared exploding with happiness, but I knew exactly what he meant. I would explode with happiness too. What's with that huge grin? Will asked as I walked into my office. He was sitting on the couch, looking through some papers. I accidentally fell asleep in Maddie's room, I said. I woke up next to my mate and I don't think I have ever been this happy. Will looked up at me and raised an eyebrow. You accidentally fell asleep in her room, he asked, and I could tell that he was trying hard not to smirk. I rolled my eyes as I sat down on my chair. Yes, I said. We were talking about the legend of the Three Kingdoms and we fell asleep. Will snorted. You bored her to death, didn't you? I rolled my eyes again. No. She loves the story as much as I do. Yeah, right, Will mumbled as he looked back down at the papers in his hand. He had a smirk on his face. I am serious, I said, making him look back up at me. She has a history book about it. She knows a lot about the Great War. Then she really is your mate, Will chuckled. I've never met a person as fascinated by that story as you. He was right. I was a bit of a nerd when it came to history, and the story of Three Kingdoms was one of my favorites. She is my mate, I said proudly as warmth spread through my body. She was mine and I was so proud of it. I could wait for her to turn 18 so I could scream it out loud and let everyone know that this beautiful woman was mine. Oh, goddess, Will sighed, and I could hear the annoyance in his voice. What? I asked, furrowing my eyebrows. Savannah is coming, he mumbled just as I heard a knock on my office door. I was so caught up in thinking about Maddie that I didn't even hear her approaching. I took a deep breath and resisted the urge to roll my eyes. The door opened and Savannah stepped inside. She had a huge smile on her face and she looked excited. What is that about? Will mind-linked me. I have no idea and I don't care. I responded. Can we talk? Savannah asked as she approached my desk. I didn't want to talk to her, but I had to be polite. I pointed at the chair opposite my desk and she sat down. She glanced back at Will. Can you give us some privacy, please? Stay. I told him through the mind link. We can talk in front of him, I said, making her look back at me. Everything you have to say to me, you can say in front of him. She sighed but gave me a small nod. You are right, she said. He will know soon anyway. I furrowed my eyebrows and glanced at Will. He was staring at Savannah with a murderous look on his face. I have wonderful news, Dimitri, Savannah said, smiling brightly. I tightened my jaw. Something was telling me that I wouldn't think the news was wonderful. I know that this is unexpected and we didn't plan it, but I am so happy, Dimitri, she said, making my stomach twist painfully. We didn't plan what? Skol was growling quietly. I could feel his nervousness. She reached over the table and took my hand in hers. I could feel the tension in the room growing. I am pregnant, Dimitri, she said. I am pregnant with your pup. My vision blackened. My heart stopped beating. My world stopped spinning. No. It wasn't possible. I was careful. We were careful. She is lying. Skol screamed. I can't feel it, Dimitri. She is lying. Don't listen to her. I narrowed my eyes and pulled my hand out of hers. That's impossible, Savannah, I said angrily. Skol can't feel the pup. We were careful. You are lying. Savannah's eyes filled with tears. I am not your mate and it will take Skol a bit longer to feel his pup, she said quietly. She is a liar. Will mind linked me. Don't believe her. She is trying to trap you. I glanced at Will and gave him a small nod. Savannah blinked away the tears and smiled again. I can't wait for us to become a family, she said. I can't wait for you to mark me and make me your Luna. My eyes widened. Was she insane? I would never do that. She wasn't pregnant and even if she was, the pup wasn't mine. The only one I would mark would be Maddie. The only one I wanted to mark was Maddie. Maddie was my mate. Maddie was my Luna. Maddie was my princess and my queen. Savannah wasn't carrying my child and I would never fall for her lies. Madeline's POV. It'd been 2 weeks since I last saw Alpha Dimitri. He hadn't been around the house and he hadn't come to the diner. I didn't know why I found that weird. Maybe because he spent a lot of time around me when I came to the pack. I noticed that I was hoping to see him again. I noticed that I was hoping to talk to him again. No, Madeline, I said quietly. You don't want to see him or talk to him. I started wiping the glasses more aggressively. What? Seth asked, making me look up at him. I felt blood rush to my cheeks. Did he hear that? He was wiping the counters and he didn't even look up at me. Nothing, I mumbled as I looked away from him. He came to stand next to me. He leaned on the countertop and watched me wipe the glasses. What are you doing tonight? He asked, making me look up at him. I furrowed my eyebrows. There is a party in the woods, he said, giving me a small smile. Would you like to go? I wasn't sure what to say. On one hand, I didn't want to go. I wanted to curl up in my bed and read. On the other hand, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad idea to hang out with Seth and meet some new people. Come on, Mads, Seth said, grinning at me. You only leave that house to go working. You need to relax and enjoy yourself once in a while. I bit my lower lip and took a deep breath. Are you scared that your dad won't let you go? Seth asked, making me shake my head. No, it's not about that, I mumbled. He will let me go. Well, he wouldn't even know that I left. I wouldn't even tell him. I would sneak out through my bedroom window. It is settled then, Seth said, grinning from ear to ear. You are going. He took the glass and the dish towel out of my hands, making me furrow my eyebrows. I will finish closing up, he said. Go home and get ready. Meet me in front of the diner in an hour. I was still unsure. Seth sighed and rolled his eyes. Come on, Mads, he said as he pushed me a little. Go home and get ready. We will have so much fun. I took the apron off and he took it out of my hands. Hurry up, come on, he said, pointing at the door. You have 58 minutes to get ready and come back. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 9:02 p.m. Hurry up, Seth repeated, making me roll my eyes at him. Fine, I mumbled as I walked away. I will see you in an hour. 57 minutes, he shouted as I closed the diner door. I chuckled and started walking toward Mike's house. The house wasn't far from the diner so it didn't take me long to get there. Where were you? I heard the most annoying voice in the world as soon as I entered the house. I sighed and resisted the urge to roll my eyes. We'd been through this every night. I was at work, I said as calmly as I could. Janet narrowed her eyes at me and took a step closer. I wanted to back away from her, but I wanted to show her that I wasn't afraid of her. "Where is Mike?" I asked, glancing toward the kitchen. "That is none of your concern," Janet said coldly. I really couldn't understand why she hated me so much. I'd never done anything to her. I didn't even talk to her most of the time. I kept to myself. I worked, helped around the house, and spent most of my time in my bedroom. "Did you hear the wonderful news?" she asked, smirking at me. I furrowed my eyebrows and shook my head. "I am going to be a grandma," she said, making my heart stop beating. "My son's mate is pregnant with their first pup." I didn't know why, but it felt like a hot rod sliced through my chest. I tried to take a deep breath, but I couldn't. Dimitri was going to be a father? His mate was pregnant? I didn't know why, but my stomach twisted painfully. "Aren't you going to congratulate me?" Janet asked. "Didn't your filthy mother teach you some manners?" I gasped and forgot about Dimitri's pup in a second. "What did she just say?" "What did you say?" I mumbled, trying to remain calm. Janet took another step closer to me. "I asked about your filthy mother," she said, repeating the word that made me want to rip her apart. "Didn't she teach you some manners?" I tightened my jaw and clenched my fists. "Don't you ever talk about my mom like that," I said, gritting my teeth. "Take that back." Janet laughed, throwing her head back. I really wanted to punch her. "I will never take it back, Janet said, looking back at me. "You and your mother deserved to be abandoned. Your mother deserved to die. It would be better for everyone if you had died with her." My heart broke inside my chest and all the anger I felt turned into pain. I wanted to scream. My mom didn't deserve to die. My mom didn't deserve to be abandoned by my father. She was an amazing woman and she deserved only the best. I couldn't come up with anything to say to the monster who was standing in front of me, so I just walked past her and started climbing the stairs. "I can't wait until you are 18 and out of my house," she said. "If I am lucky, maybe you will be out of my life even sooner." I would be the lucky one if that happened. I walked into my bedroom and closed the door behind me. It was only at that moment that I let the tears fall. I would never give her the satisfaction of seeing me cry. My mom didn't deserve to be abandoned. My mom deserved the world. "You didn't deserve it, Mom," I mumbled as I looked up. "You deserved to be loved and cherished." I sobbed quietly. I missed her. I missed my mom so much. My eyes fell on the clock on my wall. It was 9:32 p.m. I had 15 minutes to get ready. I wiped the tears from my cheeks and walked to my closet. I needed to get out of that house. I needed to get away from Janet even if it was for only a little while. Dimitri's POV. I spent every night in the last 2 weeks sleeping in my princess bed. I couldn't stay away. I couldn't even sleep without her anymore. I needed her scent and the feel of her body against mine. I needed to know that she was in my arms and that no one would take her away from me. She never knew because she didn't have her wolf's senses yet. I would wait until she fell asleep and I would quietly go up into her room. I thought that my mother or Mike would hear me, but that never happened. I didn't know how or why, but I never complained. I needed her and I would be pissed if I couldn't get to her because of them. I stayed away from her during the day. I didn't want her to see me angry. I didn't want her to see me distraught. I needed to deal with Savannah before I let my princess see me. Savannah wasn't pregnant with my pup. I knew it and she knew it. Skol never felt the pup. I knew that I was careful and that there was no way that she was pregnant. Only she never wanted to admit to it. She got my mother involved and both of them were pressuring me to mark Savannah. They wanted me to take her as my chosen mate and make her my Luna. Will and I suspected that both of them got our pack doctor involved. I'd been trying to schedule an ultrasound appointment to prove that there wasn't a pup in her, but my own pack doctor kept telling me that the ultrasound machine was broken and he couldn't fix it. It was excuse and I would fire them the first chance I got. I sent out warriors to other packs to find me an ultrasound machine and a doctor. I would doing test and prove to them that this whole pregnancy is fake. If I wasn't an alpha and a king, I would tell Savannah. I couldn't do that, though. My position and my throne could be in danger if the word got out that I threw out a she-wolf that was possibly pregnant with my pup. I needed proof. I needed that ultrasound picture. All of that made me incredibly angry. I couldn't control my temper or skol. He would get out on random occasions and it was so hard to calm him down. The only way to calm him was to go to Maddie. Both of us were happy and calm only at night when we would take her into our arms and sleep next to her. Tonight was the night when I needed her more than ever. Savannah came into my office and tried to have sex with me. She said that the pregnancy hormones were making her horny. I almost started screaming at her. There were no hormones and there wasn't a pregnancy. I was disgusted by her touch and I couldn't wait to erase it with the feel of my princess skin on mine. I couldn't wait to bury my nose into her hair and let her scent fill my lungs. I couldn't wait to kiss her soft cheek and taste her skin on my lips. So when I got into her room and saw an empty bed, my heart stopped beating. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It was almost midnight and she wasn't in her bed. She wasn't in the house either. I would have heard her if she was somewhere else in the house. Where was she? Where was my mate? Skol growled so loudly that I was so sure my mother and Mike would wake up. I pushed him back and refused to let him out. Let me find her, Skol, I told him. You don't want to scare her. He looked terrifying when he was angry and I didn't want her to be scared of him. Run, Skol screamed at me. Find her. I turned around and walked out of there as quietly as I could. Surprisingly enough, neither my mother nor Mike woke up due to my growling. As soon as I was out of the house I took a deep breath and tried to locate her scent. To your left. Skol screamed at me. I tried to keep my anger under control. I turned to my left and ran. Her scent led me to the diner. Did she go back to work? Why? The diner closed at 9. Why would she go back there? As soon as I got close, I recognized another scent. I saw red. Skol whined loudly. I could feel his anger and pain pulsating inside me. She was with Seth. Why? What were they doing? Were they on a date? Did he take my mate out on a date? Did he touch her? Did he kiss her? Did he? Oh, goddess! No, 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 no. I would kill him. She was mine. Mine. I didn't even realize that I was running through the forest. I was following her scent and I was running faster and faster by the second. I needed to find her and take her from him. She was my mate. She was mine, not his. I realized that I was running toward the lake. As I got closer, I heard voices and loud music that made me slow down a little. What was that? Was she at a party? As I got closer, I realized that I was right. It was a party, and my mate was here with him. My eyes found her immediately and I breathed out in relief. There she was, perfect as always. I wanted to go to her and take her into my arms. Go, Dimitri! Skol screamed at me. I can't skol, I mumbled. I can't tell her how I know that she wasn't in her room. I don't care, skol growled. Tell her that you were out on a run and saw her. Get her away from him and walk her back home. I couldn't do that. I didn't want to be an overbearing mate who would stop her from spending time with friends. I would stay right here and I would make sure that she was okay. I would make sure that she got home safe and I would climb into bed with her as soon as she fell asleep. If he touches her, skol said but was unable to finish the sentence. He won't, I told him. No one will touch her. I promise, skol. She was mine and my hands would be the only hands that ever touched her. Madeline's POV. I could have sworn that someone was watching me. I kept glancing toward the row of trees on my right, but I couldn't see anything. It would be easier to see if I had my wolf, but I would have to wait a little while longer. I was just being paranoid. No one was watching me. No one even knew who I was. Why would anybody want to watch me? I was nothing and no one. So, what pack are you from? A guy whose name I couldn't remember asked me. I looked away from the row of trees and saw him grinning at me. He was a little bit drunk and he kept looking up and down my body. Red Moon, I answered. Do you have a boyfriend? The guy asked. I could have sworn that I heard a growl coming from the same row of trees I was staring at just a few moments ago. I was really going insane. Stop it, Jasper, Seth said angrily. She is underage. Jasper's eyes widened a little. You don't have your wolf yet, he asked, surprised. Was he so drunk that even his wolf senses were off? He should have known that I didn't have my wolf yet. He should have sensed it. Cub. How drunk are you, man? Seth sighed as he handed me a plastic. I took a sip and frowned a little. I would never get used to the taste of wolfsbane and beer. It was bitter and I never knew why wolves liked that stuff. At least I am not the one getting her drunk, Jasper said, rolling his eyes. I was just asking if she had a boyfriend. I thought I heard another growl coming from the row of trees. I looked to my right, but I couldn't see anything. I was really losing my mind. I didn't even have that much to drink. This was only my second drink. I am not getting her drunk, Seth said. I didn't even put that much wolfsbane in it. I looked at Seth and saw him take a big sip of his drink. And you weren't asking her if she had a boyfriend because you were curious, Seth added. You asked because you want to be her boyfriend. Jasper wanted to argue, but I interrupted him. You guys aren't waiting for your mates? I asked, looking from Seth to Jasper. You are okay with dating before the mate bond? Both Seth and Jasper shrugged a little. I am excited to meet my mate, Seth said, giving me a warm smile. But I don't see the harm in dating before I do. As long as my girlfriend is aware that our relationship would end once I found my mate, I wouldn't have an issue dating her. Yeah, Jasper mumbled as he poured some more beer into his cup. As long as it isn't anything serious, I am down for it. I chuckled a little. So, to simplify what you just said, just X. Jasper laughed, and Seth sighed. You are funny, Jasper said as he stopped laughing. I like you. Maybe you will be my mate. He winked at me and this time I definitely heard a growl. We all did. Both Jasper and Seth looked at the row of trees. Maybe they would see something I couldn't. Probably just some two idiots fighting, Jasper mumbled. Seth furrowed his eyebrows but remained silent. He had a few drinks so his senses probably weren't as sharp as usual. Seth and I looked back at Jasper. I wish I was a Lycan so I could tell if you are my mate or not, Jasper grinned at me. Seth sighed and took another big sip of his drink. Are you jealous, man? Jasper asked, laughing at Seth. I furrowed my eyebrows. Why would Seth be jealous? I am not answering that, Seth mumbled as he took the cup out of my hand and placed it on the table next to us. I glanced up at him. Why did he take my drink? What are you doing? Jasper asked. She wasn't done with that. I am taking her home, Seth said. It's 2am. Jasper grunted unhappily. I am okay with staying longer, Seth, I said. You don't have to leave the party because of me. Seth shook his head and gave me a small smile. It's okay, Maddie, he said. I am tired and I want to leave. Let the girl stay, Seth, Jasper said. I will walk her home. I shook my head. Seth growled a little. That's not going to happen, Jasper, Seth said angrily. Jasper sighed and rolled his eyes. He looked at me and smiled. I am looking forward to seeing you around, cutie, he said. I will be coming by the diner more often now. I will see you around, I told him, trying to hold back a chuckle. Seth took my hand in his and started pulling me away. I am sorry if he made you uncomfortable, Mads, Seth said as soon as we were alone. He is a good guy. He is just a bit goofy and he doesn't think before he speaks. I looked up at him and smiled. It's okay, Seth, I said, making him look at me. He didn't make me uncomfortable. He is nice. Seth sighed and ran his fingers through his hair. I sometimes can't believe that jackass is my best friend, he mumbled, making me chuckle. He looked down at me and grinned. Did you have a nice time? He asked. I did, I said. Thank you for taking me. I did have a nice time. I met some of Seth's friends. Jasper did make me laugh a couple of times. I managed to forget about Janet for a little while. Seth smiled and wrapped his arm around my shoulders. I am glad, Mads, he said. I will take you out with me whenever you want. I looked up at him and smiled. If Janet continued, I would definitely need to spend more time outside the house. Deal, I said, making Seth smile brightly. I am glad you came to my pack, Mads, he said. I am lucky to have a friend like you. I smiled at him. Thank you for giving me a job, I chuckled. I am lucky to have a friend like you too. I stopped walking because we reached the tree line behind Mike's house. Seth surprised me by pulling me into a tight hug. He didn't say anything. He just held me tightly. I furrowed my eyebrows and patted his back gently. I will see you tomorrow, Mads, he mumbled as he let me go. I gave him a small smile and walked toward Mike's house. I couldn't wait to shower and get into bed. I was hoping that I would sleep as well as I slept for the last few weeks. Dimitri's POV. My whole body was trembling. Skol was right. I should have taken her away immediately. I told you, he growled, his voice trembling. Both of us were upset. Both of us hated that boy Jasper for flirting with her. Both of us wanted to rip Seth's arms off for hugging her. I am not going to be able to wait until she turns 18, Skol said. I will kill someone before that. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down a little. I couldn't let myself freak out. She was just out with friends. Nothing happened. Jasper flirted with her because she was gorgeous. Seth hugged her because he is happy to have her as a friend. No one touched what only I was supposed to touch. No one kissed her. No one did anything inappropriate. I disagree and I want to pluck Jasper's eyes out, Skol growled. We need to calm down, okay? I mumbled as I watched my princess walk back toward the house. She wasn't walking toward the front, though. What was she doing? How do you expect me to calm down when I can't take what's mine? Skol growled loudly. Not only that, I have to watch them flirt with her and, will you shut up? I interrupted him. I was trying to figure out what was Maddie doing. She wasn't walking toward the back entrance either. She was walking toward the tree in the backyard. What is she doing? Skol mumbled. I ignored him and kept my focus on her. She started to climb the tree and I had to hold back a growl. Was that how she left? She didn't tell Mike or my mother that she was leaving. Goddess, Madeline! Skol shouted. Something could have happened to her and they wouldn't even know where she was. We are going to have to keep our eye on her all the time, Skol growled as his nervousness grew. She apparently doesn't trust Mike or your mother enough to tell them that she is going somewhere. I agree, I mumbled as I watched her open her bedroom window and climb inside. How didn't my mother or Mike hear anything? They were two grown werewolves. My mother was a Lycan, for goddess sake. This definitely wasn't the first time Maddie did this. They should have heard her and stopped her. Just go to her, Dimitri, Skol sighed. You can think about all of that tomorrow. I miss her. Oh, I missed her too. I couldn't wait to go to her room, lay down next to her, and wrap my arms around her. I needed to remove Seth's scent from her body. I already knew it was going to bug me. Go, Dimitri, Skol growled. She needs to fall asleep first, Skol, I sighed. He whined and I could feel sadness wash over him. I wished that there was something I could do to make it easier for him and me. I wished that I could tell her. I wanted to tell her. But would she even believe me? She would, Skol said. She knows we are her mate. She always snuggles closer to us when we sleep with her. I smiled. Skol was right. She always made herself comfortable in my arms. She always smiled a little when I hugged her. Her body knew who I was even before she did. But it didn't matter. I couldn't tell her. I had to wait just a little bit longer. It doesn't matter, Skol, I said. I can't tell her. I can't take that discovery away from her. Not to mention how scared I was that someone was going to hurt her if the word got out that she was my mate. I couldn't let that happen. She didn't have her wolf yet. If someone tried to hurt her, she wouldn't be able to defend herself. We could teach her, Dimitri, Skol whined. We could show her how to defend herself. A human against a wolf. I mumbled. Skol whined quietly. I took a deep breath and ran my fingers through my hair. I had to be patient. She would get her wolf soon, and she would find out who I was. I would kiss her and mark her on that same day. I would make her mine forever. I think that she fell asleep, Dimitri, Skol said. Go to her. I approached the back entrance and pulled the key out of my pocket. I'd done the same thing for the past 2 weeks and I didn't even need to think about my next steps. A few moments later, I opened her bedroom door and stepped inside. Her scent washed over me and I had to hold back a grunt. I would never get used to its power over me. Her scent was like a drug I could never get enough of. She was sleeping in her bed, curled up into a small ball. I smiled. This sight was so much better than the one a few hours ago when I walked in and saw her empty bed. I closed the door and removed my shoes. I kneeled next to her bed and caressed her cheek softly. She sighed contently and leaned more into my touch. She always did that but never woke up. My presence was helping her sleep better. "Hi, my love," I mumbled quietly. "I missed you so much." I laid next to her, making sure that she was covered up nicely. It was cold outside. I never got under the covers with her. I was crossing enough boundaries by just being in her room while she slept. I just couldn't stay away. I had to hold her in my arms. I had to make sure that she was safe. She was the only one who had the ability to calm me down, and I needed it after all the Savannah and my mother pulled. I buried my nose into her hair and took a deep breath. "I love you, Madeline," I said quietly. "You are my princess and my queen. You are my light in the darkness. Every part of my body and heart belongs to you." She snuggled closer to me and my heart melted. I placed a small kiss on the top of her head. "I will never let Savannah come between us, my love," I continued, speaking quietly. "I belong to you. I am yours and I will never let her or anyone else take me away from you." I closed my eyes and leaned my head on hers. Skol sighed contently. I would keep my word. I wouldn't let Savannah ruin us. My heart belonged to Maddie and no one would ever take it from her. Madeline's POV. I stretched out and looked through the window. A small smile spread across my face. It was snowing outside. I sat up and glanced at the clock on my wall. It was 7:35 a.m. I woke up a bit too early, but I slept so well and I felt rested and ready to start my day. I was just about to stand up and go to the bathroom when a quiet knock on my door stopped me. I knew who it was even before the door opened. "Come in," I said, making Mike open the door. "Good morning, honey," Mike said as he peered inside. "I made breakfast. Are you hungry?" I shook my head, making him frown a little. "You have to eat, Maddie," he said as he stepped inside. "You work all day. You can't go without breakfast again." "I always eat at the diner," I said, and I saw sadness in Mike's eyes. It didn't bother me. If he cared about me and my well-being, he wouldn't have left me 15 years ago. "Come on, honey," he said, giving me a small smile. "Dimitri is here as well. We could have a family meal." My heart skipped a beat when Mike said that Alpha Dimitri was here. I didn't know why, though. I shouldn't care about him. I shouldn't care if he was here or not. But I did. I was glad he was here. He was the only one in this house who was nice to me. Mike took my silence as a yes. He smiled brightly and walked out of my room. "I made pancakes," he said as he closed my bedroom door and winked at me. As I let out a heavy sigh, I stood up and walked to my bathroom. I was hesitant, but a small part of me was curious to see Alpha Dimitri. Perhaps his presence would mean that Janet wouldn't be her usual unpleasant self and that my morning could be a peaceful one. Maybe she wouldn't even give me the usual glare. I took my time to get ready since I wasn't in a rush. After a while, I walked back into my room to get dressed. I chose a warm outfit because it was snowing heavily outside. I put on jeans, fluffy socks, boots, and the thickest hoodie I owned. I grabbed my coat and left my room. As I was approaching the kitchen, I heard Alpha Dimitri's voice and my heart skipped a beat. "Let it go, Mother," he said angrily. "We are putting an end to that lie today. The doctor is here and." Alpha Dimitri stopped talking as soon as I entered the kitchen. He looked at me and a huge smile spread across his face. Janet was glaring at me, but I ignored her and focused on Alpha Dimitri. "Good morning, Maddie," Alpha Dimitri said. "How did you sleep?" "Really well," I said, giving him a small smile. Good morning to you too, Alpha. I slept so well for the last 2 weeks. I didn't know why, though. Maybe it was the mattress or maybe I was just too tired after work. Whatever it was, I wasn't going to complain. I would enjoy it while it lasted. It's Dimitri, Maddie, he said softly. I told you that already. I gave him a small apologetic smile and looked at Janet. She tightened her jaw and narrowed her eyes at me. I gulped and approached the table slowly. Dimitri pulled out a chair next to him and I sat down. Mike was sitting opposite me. He had a huge smile on his face. How are you, Maddie? Alpha Dimitri asked. It's been a while since I saw you. Do you like it here? I was about to answer him, but Janet interrupted me. Don't you remember what I told you yesterday, Madeline? She asked, making me look up at her. Your Alpha is about to become a father. You should congratulate him. Don't be rude, Madeline. My heart started thumping in my chest. Alpha Dimitri growled loudly. I looked at him and my eyes widened. He looked so angry. He looked like he was about to shift. You told her, he shouted angrily. I told you not to tell her. I told you not to tell anyone. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't even breathe. Alpha Dimitri looked at me and my heart stopped beating. It isn't true, Maddie, he said, and I could swear that I heard a hint of panic in his voice. A she-wolf I had a physical relationship with is trying to force me to take her as my chosen mate. She isn't pregnant. My wolf can't feel the pup, because there is no pup. A doctor will examine her today and I will prove to everyone that she isn't pregnant. My heart was racing. Why would that woman do that to him? Why would anyone lie about something like that? I am so sorry, I mumbled quietly. You don't deserve that. Why would she do that? Why would she lie about something so important? She isn't lying, Janet sighed angrily. She is pregnant and my son is refusing to take responsibility. That is your pup, Dimitri. Alpha Dimitri looked at his mother. If looks could kill, she would be buried way deeper than just 6 feet. I can't wait to look at that ultrasound picture and see no pup in her, Alpha Dimitri growled. Mike sighed and ran his fingers through his hair. Leave him alone, Janet, Mike said. He is right. He needs to prove that she really is pregnant before he does anything. I can't believe you are forcing him into that bond. He is the king. Do you know how many she-wolves would tell a lie like that just to become his Luna and Queen? Maybe Savannah is doing just that. Alpha Dimitri clenched his fists and growled quietly. Janet looked at me murderously. Savannah is a very nice woman, Janet said, staring at me with an angry look on her face. That is the reason my son chose her in the first place. She isn't like some other women who would sleep with my son just to get something out of it. Savannah loves him. I fidgeted in my seat nervously. Why was she looking at me when she said that? Did she think that I would sleep with her son? Was she insane? I furrowed my eyebrows. Stop looking at Maddie like that, Alpha Dimitri growled at his mother. I don't love Savannah. I never loved her and that was it. I felt blood rush to my cheeks. Okay, enough, Mike said angrily, ending the fight between Janet and Alpha Dimitri. My daughter doesn't have to listen to that. Alpha Dimitri took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He took my hand in his, making me shiver. I am sorry, Maddie, he said as he opened his eyes and looked at me. Mike is right. You shouldn't have to listen to us fight. I gave him a small smile. It's okay. Come on, "Honey," Mike said as he pointed at the plate filled with pancakes. "Eat. You have a long day ahead." Alpha Dimitri let my hand go so I could eat my breakfast. I glanced up at Janet and a cold shiver went down my spine. She looked like she was about to shift and jump at me. Why did she hate me so much? Dimitri's POV. I was annoyed. Maddie knew. My mother told her. I thought that my heart was going to jump out of my chest when my mother told Maddie to congratulate me. I thought that SKOL would come out and bite my mother's head off. I didn't want Maddie to know because it was a lie. I didn't want Maddie to find out that I slept with someone else. I didn't want her to hear it from someone other than me. I was going to tell her. I would never lie to her. I wanted it to be me, though. I wanted to sit down with her and tell her that I slept with Savannah. I wanted to tell her that I didn't think about my mate at that moment and that I knew how wrong that was. I wanted to tell her how sorry I was. I wanted to tell her that she was the only one I wanted and that I would never touch or look at another woman again. My mother robbed me of that opportunity. Maddie knew and her opinion on me changed. I was sure of it. "What is going on?" Will asked as he walked into my office. "I could feel your aura as soon as I walked inside the pack house." I was leaning on the windowsill, staring at the forest behind the pack house. I didn't move. I was afraid that SKOL would come out if I moved a muscle. I was annoyed, but he was enraged. He would thrash the whole place down. "Maddie knows," I mumbled through my teeth. Will gasped. "How?" "My mother told her," I said. "She had the nerve to tell her to congratulate me." "Oh, goddess," Will mumbled. He was silent for a few moments. I tightened my jaw and narrowed my eyes. "What did Maddie say?" Will asked and I heard him sit down in the armchair. "Nothing," I mumbled. "My mom and I started fighting and she didn't get a chance to say anything. I told her it wasn't true. I explained to her. My voice broke and fear washed over me. I lowered my head and tried to take a deep breath. What if she didn't believe me? What if she wouldn't want me when she found out I was her mate? What if? "It's going to be okay, Dimitri," Will said softly. "She knows that you are telling the truth." I couldn't wait for the night to come. I couldn't wait to hold her in my arms. I couldn't wait to fill my lungs with her scent and see her beautiful face. "She doesn't even know me, Will," I mumbled as I forced my body to move. I turned around and walked up to my desk. I sat down on my chair and dragged a hand over my face. "You look like shit," Will mumbled quietly. I looked at him and frowned. "You would look like shit too if you had a psychotic woman trying to say that she is pregnant with your pup. Don't even get me started on the fact that my mate is within my reach and I can't talk about it and she may not even want me after." I stopped talking abruptly. I heard footsteps approaching and I clenched my fists. I knew who it was even before she came inside. Will sighed and ran his fingers through his hair. "Can we exile her?" he asked quietly just as the door opened and Savannah walked inside. "I will find a reason." I mind-linked him. "Hello, Dimitri," she said, smiling at me. She kept rubbing the lower part of her stomach and I had to try so hard not to roll my eyes at her. "The doctor will be here in an hour," I told her. Savannah sighed and approached my desk. SKOL was going crazy inside me. I had to use all of my strength to keep him inside. "Is there really a need for that, Dimitri?" Savannah asked, pouting. "I am carrying your pup. Why would I lie about something like that?" "Maybe because you want to force your way into becoming a Luna." Will mind-linked me angrily. I glanced at him and saw him staring at her with a murderous look on his face. I wonder the same, Savannah, I told her coldly. I don't even know where you got this idea to lie about something that could so easily be proven. Savannah sighed and looked down at her stomach. It can be proven, she said quietly before looking up at me. And I am going to prove it to you, Dimitri. We are going to be parents. I am going to be your mate and your Luna. You will have to choose me, Dimitri. My lungs felt like someone was squeezing the air out of them. I wanted Maddie. I needed Maddie. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was only 11 a.m. I had to wait for hours until I had my princess in my arms. I didn't know if I could last that long. My body needed her. My soul needed her. Well, since you are not a Luna yet, I will have to ask you to leave, Will said as he stood up. Dimitri and I have work to do. Thank you. I mind-linked him. He understood that I couldn't even answer her. I was way too angry and in too much pain. I needed Maddie. Savannah sighed and looked me up and down. I will see you in an hour, Dimitri, she said before turning around and walking away. Will sat back down as soon as she walked out and closed the door. Do you want to go to the diner? Will asked, looking at me worriedly. Maybe you will feel better if you see her. I wasn't sure about that. I would be able to see her, but I wouldn't be able to hold her. And I needed to hold her. It's okay, I mumbled. We can go after the ultrasound. I will feel better after. I don't want her to see me like this. Will nodded and took a deep breath. Dimitri, he called me quietly. I looked at him and saw a worried look on his face. His eyebrows were furrowed and he kept biting the inside of his cheek. I waited for him to continue. What if Savannah really is pregnant? Will asked, making the anger inside me explode. I clenched my fists and gritted my teeth. If she really is pregnant, that pup isn't mine, I said coldly. I was careful and I didn't get her pregnant. I wasn't going to let her ruin my life. I wasn't going to let her take me away from Maddie. I belonged to Maddie and I would make sure that no one messed with that. Dimitri's POV Alpha Dimitri, the doctor said and bowed his head a little. Hello, Dr. Jackson, I said, giving him a small nod. I hope the drive here was pleasant. It was, Alpha, Dr. Jackson said, giving me a small smile. Thank you for choosing me and trusting me to do this exam. I have a question, doctor, I said as I sat down on the chair next to the bed. Please, ask anything, Alpha, the doctor said as he gave me a small smile. I gulped and glanced at Will. His face was expressionless. In case Savannah is pregnant, will you be able to tell how far along she is? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. I needed to be sure. Yes, Alpha, the doctor nodded. If she is pregnant, I will be able to tell you how old the fetus is. I nodded and glanced at Will again. His expression didn't change. What about the paternity? I asked. Can you do it on an unborn pup? The doctor nodded again. Yes, Alpha. It won't be able to do it until the 6th week of the pregnancy, though. I nodded and took a deep breath. Thank you, doctor, I said just as I heard Savannah and my mother approaching the room. Will's jaw twitched. My heart raced. I knew that she wasn't pregnant. Even if she was, that pup wasn't mine. I just needed proof. I needed to be able to tell Maddie that I wasn't the father. I needed to reassure my mate that I was entirely hers, even though she didn't know it yet. The door opened and Savannah walked inside. My mother walked in after her and closed the door. I wondered why Savannah's parents weren't there. Why did she rely on my mother and not her own family? I would never ask her that, though. I didn't care. I couldn't wait to get rid of her once and for all. "Hello, miss," the doctor said politely. "Please lay down and lift your shirt a little bit." I liked Dr. Jackson. He didn't waste my time. Savannah looked at me, faking hurt. "Do we really have to do this, Dimitri? I am carrying your pup." I resisted the urge to roll my eyes at her. I remained silent and pointed at the bed. "You are going to regret this, Dimitri," my mother said, making me clench my jaw. "You will be apologizing to Savannah in a minute." I remained silent. I didn't even look at my mother. I kept my eyes on Savannah and watched as she laid on the bed. My heart was hammering in my chest. It felt like it would break through my rib cage. The doctor approached Savannah and put a little bit of some clear gel on her lower stomach. She flinched a little. "I am sorry, miss," the doctor apologized. "It's okay," Savannah said, giving him a small smile. The doctor started the exam and I held my breath. I could feel the nervousness in the room increasing. Skol was on the edge. I could feel his anger pulsating inside me. I looked at Savannah and saw her staring at the display on the ultrasound machine. I looked at it too, but I couldn't see anything. I didn't even know what to look for. "Well, miss, it looks like you are in fact pregnant," the doctor said, making my heart stop beating. "No. No, 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 no. It wasn't mine. It wasn't mine. Skol would know." I could hear my blood pumping inside my veins. My mom and Savannah laughed excitedly. "How far along is she?" I forced myself to speak. Savannah looked at me and widened her eyes. "Why does it matter, Dimitri? I told you that I am pregnant. We are going to be parents in 6 months." I didn't even look at her. I couldn't. Skol would rip her head off. I looked at her. He was thrashing and trying to come out. "How far along, doctor?" I asked, gritting my teeth and trying to stop Skol from coming out. "Dimitri," my mom spoke, but I interrupted her. "I need to know how far along she is," I growled, looking at my mother. "It's been over a month since I've touched her. Skol can't feel the pup. If it is less than a month old, I am not the father." My mother glanced at Savannah. She opened her mouth to speak, but I interrupted her again. "How far along, doctor?" I asked, looking from my mother to him. "Around 2 weeks, Alpha," the doctor said, and a huge stone fell from my chest. A smile spread across my face and I looked up at Will. "That's not possible!" Savannah shouted as she tried to sit up. "Look again." I sighed and rolled my eyes. "Don't embarrass yourself, Savannah. You tried to trap me, but it didn't work. Maybe you should talk to the actual father of your pup. Maybe he would want to take you as his chosen mate." Savannah's eyes widened. My mother growled. "Don't be rude, Dimitri," my mother said, making me look at her in disbelief. "The ultrasounds can be wrong. Savannah is telling the truth. This is your child. Is she serious?" Will mind-linked me. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. She looked like she meant it. What was wrong with her? Shouldn't she be angry at Savannah for lying and trying to trap me? "What are you talking about, mother?" I forced myself to speak. "You should be angry at her for lying to me. This pup isn't your grandchild, mother." Savannah sobbed, but it didn't bother me. Not even slightly. If she wasn't really pregnant, I would have exiled her. But I wasn't going to hurt an innocent pup just because its mother was lying. I would find another way to punish her. Could the ultrasound be wrong, doctor? Will asked angrily. Doctor shook his head as he wiped the gel from Savannah's lower stomach. No, he said. The fetus is around 2 weeks old. The ultrasound wasn't wrong. Then you are. Savannah shouted at him before looking at me. I want another doctor. I clenched my fists. I saw red. You can have 1,000,000 doctors, Savannah, and this pup still wouldn't be mine, I growled. I will ask for a paternity test as soon as I can and I will prove that this pup isn't mine. I stood up and left the room abruptly. I couldn't stand being near her any longer. I couldn't wait to see Maddie. I needed her scent to calm me down. I needed to feel her against me to remind myself that everything was going to be okay. Madeline's POV. We have guests, Mads, Seth said as he opened the kitchen door. I nodded and gave him a small smile. I will be right out, I said. Give me a second to finish washing this. Seth nodded and closed the door. I had only one plate left to wash, so I was walking through the kitchen door in a few minutes. My stomach twisted painfully when I saw Janet sitting in one of the booths. A gorgeous woman was sitting opposite her and both of them had huge smiles on their faces. Can you go serve them, Mads? Seth asked. I'm swamped. He really was. There were a lot of people here tonight. I gave him a small nod and approached the booth Janet and her friend were sitting in. Hello, I said, giving them a small smile. Welcome to Macy's Diner. May I take your order, please? Janet looked up at me and the smile disappeared from her face. It was replaced by anger. She looked me up and down and then a small smirk appeared on her face. You should really congratulate us before taking our order, Madeline, she said, making me furrow my eyebrows. I glanced at the woman sitting opposite her. She was looking me up and down with disgust written all over her face. I would love to, Janet, but I don't know what to congratulate you for, I said calmly as I looked back at Janet. She smiled and looked at the woman opposite her. We just came back from the exam, Janet said, reaching over the table and taking the woman's hand in hers. Savannah is pregnant with my son's pup. It felt like a knife was plunged into my chest. Why? Why did I even care? She was pregnant? She was really pregnant? I looked at the woman and smiled. Congratulations, miss, I said, forcing a small smile on my face. She looked at me and narrowed her eyes. I am not a miss. I am your Luna and you should get used to calling me that. I swallowed the lump in my throat and bowed my head a little. My apologies, Luna, I said quietly. Can I take your order, please? Calling her Luna sounded wrong. It burned my tongue and left an uneasy feeling in my stomach. She didn't belong with Alpha Dimitri. He was such a kind man and I could already tell that this woman in front of me was a biche. She was going to destroy this pack. I tightened my jaw and forced a small smile on my face. I didn't care. This wasn't my pack and I would be leaving the day I turned 18. Alpha Dimitri was nothing but a nice man who tried to make me feel welcome. I shouldn't care about his pregnant mate or his pack. They wouldn't even remember my name once I left. I will have a salad and a glass of water, Janet said, and I could feel her eyes shooting daggers at me. What did I do to make her hate me so much? Was it just because I was Mike's daughter? Did I remind her of the fact that Mike had a fated mate? I will have the same, Alpha Dimitri's mate said. Anything else? I asked, forcing another small smile on my face. Janet looked me up and down and narrowed her eyes at me. Make sure that someone else brings us our order, Janet said coldly. I don't want my grandchild to get some kind of disease from you. I felt anger boiling in my blood. Janet looked at Alpha Dimitri's mate and sighed. You never know what kind of diseases these stray wolves are carrying. The woman looked me up and down and frowned in disgust. I wanted to smack that ugly expression off her face. Leave, orphan, the woman said. And make sure you don't bring us our food. I clenched my fists, gave them a small nod, and rushed to the kitchen. I was holding back angry tears. I hated that about myself. I would often cry when I was angry and it only made me look weak. I wasn't weak. I walked back into the kitchen and took a deep breath. What's wrong? Seth asked, making me look at him. I gave him a small smile and shook my head. Nothing, I said. Can you please serve Janet and the woman who is with her? They both want a salad and a glass of water. I will take some of your tables. Seth was silent for a few moments. He furrowed his eyebrows and gave me a small nod. Of course, Mads, he said as he pointed at the plates on one of the counters. Table 3 ordered burgers. I nodded, walked up to the counter, picked the plates up, and walked out to bring them to our guests at table 3. Enjoy your meal, I said as I put the plates down. These guests were so much nicer than Janet and Alpha Dimitri's mate. They smiled at me and engaged in a small conversation. I could feel Janet's eyes on my back the entire time. I was so ready to leave this pack. I wished that I didn't have to wait more than 8 months to do so. I needed to spend as much time away from that house as possible. I walked back into the kitchen and saw Seth preparing their salads. Will there be another party anytime soon? I asked, making him look up at me. He smiled and raised an eyebrow at me. I am not really getting along with Janet, I sighed as I leaned on the counter. I need to get out of that house. Seth chuckled and looked back down at the salads he was preparing. There will be another party next weekend, he said. But if you want to get out of there, you and I could go on a trip together. There is a wonderful lake not far from here. The hike is a bit long, but the lake is worth it. Yes. I answered as soon as he stopped talking. He looked up at me and smiled. Deal, he said. I will tell my mom that we won't be working tomorrow. Guilt washed over me. I should have thought it through before agreeing. Will she be okay with it? I asked, biting my lower lip. We can go some other time. Don't worry, Mads, Seth said, giving me a small smile. My mom will be thrilled that we decided to do something other than working. I gave him a small nod and smiled. He finished making the salads and walked out of the kitchen. I took a deep breath and released it slowly, trying to get rid of the sharp pain in my chest. I couldn't wait to leave the pack. Dimitri's POV. I had to hold back from thrashing my office. I couldn't believe that she was pregnant. She must have convinced some poor bastard to sleep with her and thought that I wouldn't notice that the time didn't match. She must have thought that I wouldn't care. But I did. Of course, I did. I had a beautiful mate who I loved with every part of my body and soul. I cared if someone tried to take me away from her. I cared if someone tried to destroy my future with her. I needed Maddie. I needed her so much. I placed my hands on the windowsill, leaned forward, and took a deep breath. We need to think this through, Dimitri, Will said angrily. We need to make the best decision possible for you and for our pack. I pictured Maddie's beautiful face in front of me. I imagined myself in her bed, holding her close to me. I remembered her scent and let it soothe my soul. It wasn't even close to the real thing, but it helped a little. It helped me take a deep breath and focus on Will. He was right. I had a decision to make. I turned around and approached my desk. I sat down and ran my fingers through my hair. Will was already sitting in his usual spot. He had an angry look on his face. "You should have been more selective about where you were dipping you," he mumbled angrily. I shot him a glare. "I know. You told me that already." He rolled his eyes and tightened his jaw. I knew how much he hated Savannah. I should have listened to him, but I never thought that she was capable of doing something like this. She and I were friends for a long time before we had sex. I thought that she was a nice person, but I was a naive fool. "I am sorry," Will mumbled as he looked down at his lap. "It's like my anger doubled since I met Maddie. She is my Luna and I need to protect her. I'm having a hard time controlling my anger now that there is a biche who is trying to take Maddie's rightful place." I understood him. He was a beta and protecting his Luna was an instinct for him. It was his duty and his privilege to protect her. "I know," I mumbled. "I'm not even sure how I managed to keep Skol inside this whole time. He wants to rip Savannah to pieces." Will nodded and tightened his jaw. He looked up at me and I saw determination in his eyes. "We won't let Savannah take what belongs to Maddie," he said. "Maddie is your mate and my Luna and I will be damned if I let Savannah take her place." I smiled. I was so proud of my friend. Of course we wouldn't let that take Maddie's place. I was so glad that Will was as protective of Maddie as I was. I knew that I could count on him to keep her safe. "We need to consider possible consequences," I said, getting straight to business. "If Savannah tells someone that she is pregnant with my pup, my wolves will expect me to mark her and make her my Luna." Will nodded. "That's my main concern." I gulped and tried to take a deep breath. "I need to wait 4 weeks to be able to do the paternity test," I said. I already ordered her not to tell anyone, but that was after she told my mother and her parents. I am not sure if she told anyone else. "We need to talk to her and make her tell us who knows," Will said. I nodded. "I need to order everyone not to spread the lie around." My mother and Savannah's parents were already under my order. I didn't even think it would be necessary to put my mother under alpha order, but I was so wrong. I ordered her not to tell anyone after she told Maddie. I wished that I had done it sooner. I wished that Maddie didn't know. I wished that I had the opportunity to tell her and explain. "You should probably order them not to talk about it amongst themselves either," Will added. "I have a feeling that Savannah will gloat about it around Maddie." I saw red. Will was right. I ordered them not to tell anyone who didn't already know, but my order didn't stop them from talking about it to the people who already did. "You are right," I mumbled. "I should have thought about it sooner. Why didn't I?" "You have a lot on your mind, Dimitri," Will sighed. "You can't think of everything. That's why you have me." I gave him a small nod and took a deep breath. He was right. My mind was all over the place. I was trying to find a way to get rid of Savannah as soon as possible. I was trying to keep up with my work at the pack. But most of all, I was trying to find a way to survive those long days without Maddie in my arms. I couldn't wait for the day when I would be able to go to her whenever I wanted. I couldn't wait to be able to kiss her and touch her whenever I wanted and needed to. I glanced at the clock on the wall. Waiting until tonight would be torture. "Are you still sleeping in Maddie's room every night?" Will asked, making me look back at him. "Yes," I nodded. "I can't sleep without her." Will shook his head, but a small smile spread across his face. "What if she wakes up and sees you there?" he asked. I don't think that will happen, I said. She sleeps better when I'm there. Will chuckled and shook his head again. I hope that you are right, man, he said. If she wakes up and sees you there, she will freak out. I frowned at him. She won't, I mumbled. I would think of an excuse for being there. I wasn't going to stop sleeping in her room. I wouldn't be able to fall asleep without her. There was no way I would stop. She was the only one who could keep me calm while I had to deal with Savannah. She was the only one who stopped me from shifting and destroying everything around me. I needed her and I couldn't wait to have her in my arms again. Madeline. Madeline's POV. I walked into the house and closed the door gently. I didn't want to let Janet know that I was home. If Mike wasn't here, she would make sure to insult and threaten me. Honey. I heard Mike's voice calling me from the kitchen. A part of me was relieved that he was home. Another part of me dreaded going there and seeing Janet. My stomach was turning every time she would look at me. I could feel the hate radiating off her and it was making me sick. Maddie. Mike called me when I didn't answer. I took a deep breath and walked to the kitchen. Mike was making dinner. He looked up at me and smiled. Hi, honey, he said softly. Are you hungry? I am making lasagna. I glanced at Janet who was sitting at the table. She was looking up at me with so much hate that I shivered. No, thank you, Mike, I mumbled as I looked back at him. I ate at the diner. Mike frowned a little. Are you sure, honey? He asked with a hint of worry in his voice. Did you eat enough? Maybe just a small piece. His fake worry was really annoying. Did he care if I ate enough when he left my mom and me? I am not hungry, I said politely. Mike gave me a small nod and smiled. Okay, honey, he said. Would you like to sit with us and talk for a bit? I would love to know how your day went. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Since when did he want to know how my day went? I was so angry at him and I just couldn't let it go. I could feel the anger eating me up inside, but no matter what I did or said to myself, I couldn't stop it. I was angry at him. He left me. He left my mom. He didn't care about me. He didn't try to contact me or ask about me. If my mom was still alive, he wouldn't even be in my life. I am actually really tired, Mike, I said, my voice raspy. I will just go take a shower and go to bed. I saw disappointment in his eyes. I didn't care though. It only made me angrier. What gave him the right to be disappointed? Okay, honey, Mike said, giving me another small smile. I will see you in the morning. I gave him a small nod and glanced at Janet. She was still looking at me angrily. Good night, Janet, I said politely. Good night, Madeline, she mumbled coldly. I looked back at Mike and gave him a small nod. I turned around and walked out of the kitchen. I wasn't lying to Mike, though. I was tired and I just wanted to take a shower and go to bed. I didn't. Ate at the diner, but I wasn't hungry. Even if I was, Janet's cold gaze would make me lose my appetite. As soon as I walked into my room, I put my bag down on the floor. I was just about to open my bathroom door and walk inside when someone barged into my room. I turned around and froze when I saw a furious Janet standing by my bedroom door. She looked furious and I felt fear washing over me. Is that a way to speak to your father, Madeline? She asked as she took a step closer to me. I furrowed my eyebrows a little. I wasn't rude to Mike. Janet approached me. I tried to take a step back, but I was frozen. You are rude and ungrateful, Madeline," Janet said as a quiet growl escaped her. "I won't tolerate that in my home." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I am sorry, Janet," I mumbled quietly. "I just wasn't hungry." She interrupted me by slapping my face so hard that I almost fell. I held my burning cheek and looked up at her wide-eyed. "Do not answer back, Madeline," she growled. "Mike might tolerate your rudeness, but I won't." I gulped and forced my legs to move. I took a small step back from her. It was a mistake, though. It only angered her more. She took a step closer and grabbed me by the neck. My eyes widened and I tried to move her hand, but it was useless. She was a Lycan she-wolf. Even if I had my wolf already, she would be stronger than me. "Don't you ever think that you can escape me, Madeline," she growled. "I will do whatever I have to do to keep you in line." I tried to gulp, but her hand on my neck barely gave me any room to breathe. Gulping or speaking was impossible. She smirked and loosened her hand a little. "Don't even try to complain about this to anyone," she said coldly. "No one wants you here, Madeline, not even your father. He took you in out of guilt. He agrees with me that you need discipline." My eyes widened again. I wanted to ask her why wasn't he in here then? If he thought that I needed discipline, why wasn't he in here then? I didn't ask because I was too afraid. I didn't want her to hit me again. Janet smirked at me again. She let me go and took a step back. "Behave, Madeline," she said, making me tighten my jaw. "Don't make me hit you again because I will do it. Make it easier on all of us and make yourself invisible until you leave." I wished that could happen immediately. I wished that I could leave the pack today. But I couldn't. Not until I got my wolf. Not until I earned enough money to start somewhere else. Janet turned around and left my room, slamming the door shut. I gulped and took a deep breath. I wanted to cry, but I refused to. She didn't deserve my tears. She wasn't going to break me. I wasn't going to let her turn me into someone weak. I wasn't weak. I tightened my jaw and walked into my bathroom. I needed that shower more than ever. I needed to wash the memory of her hands from my face and neck. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.